Good morning. My name is Warner Bullock. Today is January the 15th, 2008. We are at the Air and Military Museum of the Ozarks in Springfield, Missouri. Together with us today is John Aldridge and Wayne Warner and Jim Tice, who are in the background and certainly can contribute if they would like. We have the privilege today of having a friend of mine and a good acquaintance, Mr. George Copeland. George was with the B-24s over Europe in World War II, and we're going to have him tell us of his overseas experience. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Warner.
First of all, give us a little background, George. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What age did you enter the military and basic training and so on?
Thank you. You asked a lot of questions.
Well, I'll write it down.
Well, I was born near Wayside, Kansas, country, farm boy, and went to high school at Wayside, Kansas, Consolidated High School, which at the time I was in high school was about 40 kids in the whole school. That's all 4 years, and graduated in 1938. Went to junior college in Independence, Kansas for a while. I majored in extracurricular activities, which didn't help my grades any. And then went to Wichita, Kansas to see if I could get a job. I didn't like farming, although I had the opportunity to farm if I wanted to. My father had plenty of land and equipment, which he was ready to retire. But I went to Wichita, went to machinist school there, finally got a job with Culver Aircraft Company, worked there for about a month, then went to Cessna Aircraft, and I worked there until the draft board came after me and changed my classification to 1A. Then I decided that I wanted to go to pilot training rather than be drafted. So another man and I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma to enlist in the Air Force in pilot training. Well, I made it, and he didn't.
Okay.
So I don't remember why he failed, but he didn't.
You mean the preliminary, the physical to be accepted?
The physical and other psychological tests and all that.
And how old were you, George?
See, I was about 22 then.
22. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
Did you work on military aircraft at Cessna, or was it still civilian, or what did you do?
the aircraft we were making was called the Bamboo Bomber. It was the old AT-17, which was a fabric-covered twin-engine aircraft, and we built it for the Canadian Air Force as pilot trainer, twin-engine pilot trainer.
Then you joined the military, the Army, and went to, was it basic training or primary flight school, or?
Well, we went, I didn't get called up to active duty. I went in the reserves after that, and didn't get called up to active duty until January 1943. Then they shipped me to San Antonio, Texas, where we went to pre-flight school rather than basic.
Similar to basic?
Well, a little more than basic, because we had the upper class system, lower class system like they do in the OCS, and we had 4 hours of academics, 4 hours of physical training, which included the same thing that they get in basic, only much more intense, I think.
All right. From there, take us on.
So from there, I graduated from pre-flight school. We shipped to Tulsa, Oklahoma for primary flight training.
Close to home.
Close
to Wayside, okay.
A little too far to make a flight over and buzz at Homestead while I was solo.
Even though you would like to have. Okay.
And I thought about it.
Right.
And went through pilot training there up until the very last. About the last 3 days of flight training, they decided I couldn't fly the airplane the way they wanted me to, so I got eliminated from flight training at that point.
Had to be a disappointment, but
Well, it was a big disappointment.
life goes on. So after that, what happened?
So they sent me to basic training at Shepherd Field, Texas.
And that was after you'd already been through a basic training type of thing.
We knew more about the Army regulations and basic training than our drill instructors did there.
Probably so. All right, go ahead.
So was there for about 2 or 3 weeks. They sent me to armament school in Lauderfield, Denver, Colorado. Went through armament school, learned how to make bombs, fix machine guns, and things like that.
Were you acquainted with weapons? Were you a hunter around home, and was it all new to you?
Well, I was familiar with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Okay, that's okay.
Because I'd hunted quail since I was big enough to carry one.
All right.
And, I quit working at Cessna so I could get in my quail hunting before I went to the Army.
Right.
And I had my limit of 10 birds, I think, by noon that first day. Anyway.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is you had an idea about pointing a gun before the Army told you how to point a gun.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Neighbor boys and I used to have a contest where we'd stick matches in the ground about 10 or 15 feet away and use our .22 rifle to light them.
Oh my gosh.
That didn't mean you cut it off. You had to light it without.
Well, that was a good basis for your training. All right, you went there and to armament school, and then what?
And then went to area gunnery school at Harlingen, Texas. And there we worked with the 30 caliber machine gun and the 50 caliber, which I already knew about from armament school in Denver. But there we shot at moving targets, still targets, and aerial targets from the back seat of a T6.
Actually, a T6 with a gun in it.
A T6 with a 30 caliber machine gun mounted in the back seat.
No, we don't. I didn't realize we had such a thing.
Well, yes, we did. We had several of them down there.
So you would shoot at a target or a sleeve towed behind another aircraft.
That's correct.
All right, and you obviously made it through there. Then what happened?
Then I got a 10-day delay en route from Harlingen, Texas to Salt Lake City, Utah. That was a pretty long train ride, but got a delay en route, and that year I spent Christmas at home and had to report to Salt Lake City on the 3rd of January, I believe.
1944?
1944. Okay. And was there for, maybe a month, I don't know how long, wasn't very long. And we went to Blythe, California there, and that's where I met up with the rest of the crew. That was the formation. We went out there for our overseas training in B-24s.
At what point did you know you were going to be on a B-24? Before you went on Christmas leave, or?
No, when I got to Blythe, California.
You got to Blythe, California, okay. Then you met up with the other members of your crew. They would have been pilot, co-pilot, navigator.
The whole ball of wax, all 10 of us.
All right.
That's where we first met up, and I don't remember too much. I remember the pilot got his B-24 transition training at Liberal, Kansas, which is way out west in Kansas.
Right.
And
how long were you there forming as a crew, or?
well, we stayed there until May, I believe it was, the 1st of May. Began to get too warm for the B-24s on those asphalt runways, but they shipped us to Hamilton Field, California, which is on San Francisco Bay.
Well, back up a second. 2 questions. Did you spend a lot of time training in a B-24? And you also said that it was too hot for the B-24. Does that mean the aircraft had a hard time getting in the air in the heat, or it's too hot for you guys to be in it? Or?
No, too heavy for the runways.
Too heavy for the
runways.
Okay. And did you spend a lot of time in the aircraft in your training?
We spent quite a bit of time.
Most of it, okay.
And we flew high altitudes, and here it was 100 degrees on the ground, and we were 25,000 feet high, and it was 40 below. But
all right, and then how long were you there in training to become a functional crew, I guess?
we were there from January until May.
Right.
The 1st of May, we went to Hamilton Field.
Near San Francisco.
Here, right north of San Francisco, right.
All right.
We were given a brand new B-24 to take the guns out of the Cosmoline, and supposed to get 100 hours on the aircraft before we took off across the South Pacific. And we had a situation occur there where they took 10 crews and were going to send them to Langley Field, Virginia for air sea rescue. And our crew was listed as one of them. You know, the man went up there and cried to the general because he wasn't on it. The general said, I'll take care of that situation, so he took everybody off of it. And then we got on a train and went from Hamilton Field to Kilmer, New Jersey.
Well, why did the guy want to be on it? Did he not want to go in as a combat aircraft, or do you have any idea?
He just didn't want to go to combat.
Okay.
To be really frank about it, he didn't say so, but that was it.
All right. Then you went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
Got on a ship ran by the Coast Guard,
Okay.
and they took us to Scotland.
What was the name of the ship? Do you remember?
USS General Butner.
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 Okay. And you went to Scotland. Where you remember where in Scotland?
The Firth of Clyde.
Firth of Clyde. All right.
I think that's where most of the convoys ended up.
When you were in convoy, how long did it take you to get over there in convoy?
14 days.
14 days. Were you ever concerned about German submarines, or was that kind of in the background now?
Yeah, everybody was concerned. We was in a big convoy.
Yeah.
And, of course, we were supposedly protected by destroyers and the Navy. But we made it all good shape.
Did anybody get torpedoed?
Not to my knowledge.
Good. All right. You arrived in Scotland and continue on from there.
We arrived in Scotland and went to Stone, England. There we stayed a day or two. I don't know how long we stayed there. We were sent to Northern Ireland to combat school for 2 weeks. And then from Northern Ireland we went to our bomb group, which was the 448 bomb group.
Okay.
We arrived there on the 2nd day of June 1944.
So you were going to get another aircraft. You had said earlier that you were preparing one to go to the Pacific, but obviously that one, you didn't stay with that aircraft and went.
No, when we got taken off of the deal to go to sea search school or sea rescue, I took our airplane.
Right.
Put us on a train, and we went all the way across the United States on the train.
As a crew.
As a crew.
As a crew. Probably you didn't come close to Wayside on the train ride, did you?
No.
No. All right. You arrived in England, and you were assigned an aircraft at that point?
No, we weren't assigned any particular aircraft. We were assigned certain aircraft on a mission. Whenever we were reported for duty, why they told us what aircraft we'd take.
Luck of the draw. Can you remember much about your first combat flight aircraft or first flight?
First combat flight?
Yeah.
I don't remember a whole lot about it, except that it was to Orleans, France. It was 2 days after D-Day. We were to bomb a bridge there. I'm sure that was to cut off the supply line to Omaha Beach and that area. But we missed the bridge.
Your airplane specifically, or the whole bunch?
The whole
group
bunch missed the bridge.
Well, maybe that's a conversation for later. Why that? Do you remember any of your feelings? What you were feeling? First 22-year-old, first time in combat?
No, I don't remember.
All right. Then you did some more missions, and finally, tell us about the.
2 days later, we went back to Orleans, France, and bombed the bridge.
Did you find it?
I guess we found it.
You found it that time. All right. So you gave the Germans 2 days to think about it, right?
And they used it pretty heavily in those 2 days.
I would think so. So, as I remember, on your fifth flight was the one that really became significant. Would you tell us a little bit about that, or tell us a lot about that?
Not a whole lot to say about that, except we were scheduled to bomb the refinery in Hamburg. We bombed the refinery and pretty heavy flak that day. And on the way out, we got hit several times with flak. So much so that the airplane wasn't flyable anymore, so we had to get out and leave it.
Well, could you hear the flak hitting the aircraft?
Well, I don't remember too much about that, but you could see the holes.
You could see the holes, but not the. All right.
You couldn't hear too much. Oh, you could hear a little of it, yeah. But
obviously, the aircraft was damaged. Were any of the crew? Did they get hit?
One of the waist gunners got a little flak in the calf of his leg.
And you were a bottom turret gunner.
Right.
All right. You got hit and damaged the aircraft a lot, and at some point,
the pilot said he hit the silk, so we did.
Were you first out of the airplane, second, third, fifth, or do you even remember?
I don't remember. I
right.
remember going back there, and the tail gunner had his parachute in his arms. He opened his parachute in the airplane, caught it in his arm.
So he's standing there with it strapped on his back, but he's holding it in his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And how did he get out of the airplane?
Same way I did.
Which?
This is a camera hatch door in the back part of the aircraft.
Okay. He got out, even with it in his arms, he got out.
He got out. It opened immediately.
He survived and returned, which is part of the story later.
Yeah, he said when he got on the ground, there's a whole bunch of women in this village he landed in. Said they planted a shoe factory right in his butt.
Okay. And you were close to coming out over the coast when you when you had to leave the aircraft, correct?
We were 6 minutes from the North Sea, so the pilot said.
Well, having been a POW is not a good experience, but what if you'd have had to put down in the North Sea? Would you,
Well, You missed the lecture we had Saturday.
Yes. Okay, I did.
With the Coast Guard.
Right.
Their assignment was to pull all of the downed aircraft men out of the sea.
So if that would have happened, we may not have been having the interview today.
It might not.
All right. So you bailed out. Do you remember exiting the aircraft, or remember being in the chute coming down?
Yeah. I remember being exceedingly quiet. Couldn't hear anything. I don't know that I've ever been in a place that was as quiet as it was coming down that
Right.
chute.
Yeah. Do you remember the chute opening or any of that kind of stuff? Or?
No.
No. All right. So you are coming down. Could you see any of the other crew, their parachutes?
No, I couldn't see them.
And you didn't see what happened to the airplane?
No, I didn't.
Okay. All right. You obviously landed, and tell us about that.
I was coming down in this little village, and I could see a patch of woods. I thought, well, if I can get in there, I know enough about survival to survive in those woods. They could never find me, I didn't think. And I saw I was going to come down there into a high line, so I did a no-no. They told us never ever slip a parachute. I didn't think I wanted to end up in a high line, so I slipped the parachute.
Well, tell us what slip means.
Slip, you climb up the shroud lines on one side of the parachute, kind of pull it down, let the air spill out on the other side, and then you move that direction.
All right.
And
You obviously missed the electric lines.
I did. And I remember starting to get out of the parachute harness, and I was going to leave it there and run to the woods, and I looked down the barrel of the pistol. He got there at the same time I did.
Do you remember anything about the individual that greeted you?
Oh, he must have been 15, maybe 16 years old.
Yeah. In a uniform? Or
In a uniform.
In a uniform, okay.
And nervous.
Yeah.
He was more nervous than I was, I think.
That's hard to believe, but okay. Yeah. All of your crew got out of the airplane.
All of them got out of the airplane. One of them was killed after he got on the ground. I don't know too much of the particulars about that.
All right, this young boy has you as a captive. Take us from there.
Well, they marched me down the street in the middle of the village, and
were just the two of you, or did more people come around as you?
we had quite a crew marching down.
By the time you got down the street, okay.
Most of them were women, I think, if I remember right. And they took me down to, I suppose, the Home Guard headquarters or something, because there was a German officer there. And he took my escape kit, kept asking me what this was and that was, and I didn't know.
You never had.
I knew a little bit, but I told him I didn't know.
Well, you'd never used one before either.
No, but I'd been told what was in it.
All right.
So it wasn't entirely a stranger to me.
What kind of stuff was in it? Just
Well, there were Benzedrine tablets, which we were to take that to give us the stamina and stay awake. And they said we could take those, but in 24 hours you better be where you can sleep for 24 hours, because you'd be all
groggy and
fatigued out.
fatigued, right? All right, they got you into town to the what you assume was the Home Guard headquarters, and then what?
Then they had me take off all my clothes.
All of your clothes.
All my clothes, to go through them for any hidden maps, compasses, or whatever, I guess.
Okay.
And the rest of the city was standing outside the storefront looking in. I didn't do much of a striptease. I just took them off.
Just, no music.
No music.
No music. All right. Did you shortly or eventually get your clothes back, or what about your gear, your parachute bag, your parachute?
Didn't get any of that back. Got my clothes back. They put me in upstairs of a building, which had laundry in it, I guess. It had mattress covers and some uniforms. So I took some of the mattress covers, since nobody was watching me, and tore those up, made a rope thing, and I'd get out of that place come dark. Of course, I didn't know it didn't get dark till about 10 o'clock at night there.
That was that far north.
Is that part of it?
Were the local people hostile to you, or
Not to me, no.
okay? You sometimes hear stories of the I don't want to say natives, but the locals not treating you well. But in your case, they weren't really hostile.
No, in my particular case, they were not, but you really couldn't blame them.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, you had your escape kit. They took that from you. You had nothing left. You had your clothes on your back, but that was about it. Take us from there.
Well,
You did not. You said you were going to. Had thought about escaping, but you didn't. Obviously.
that night we were put on a train, and I don't remember who all was there. I remember our bombardier was in a group, and the navigator. I think the waist gunner was there, and me. We were on a train. They took us to Frankfurt and put us in solitary confinement.
Was it just your crew that was on the train, or were there other now POWs?
It was just our crew, just our group, part of our crew, not the whole crew. And,
You were in solitary confinement for how long?
for about 3 days.
Did you get food and drink?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. And then 3 days, and then what happened?
And then they sent us back to Germany to Dulag, what they call the Dulag or transit camp.
Did anybody interrogate you while you were there after the 3 days?
Oh, that was a continuous thing.
What did they want to know, George? I mean, can you remember what kind of questions? Or
Well, they wanted to know if I'd seen London burning. And no, I had not seen London burning. And the interrogator told me he'd seen it from the French coast. He knew that it was 6 square miles of London burning. And I told him, well, I didn't know. I didn't see it. And
what was he? I'm not sure how to say it. Was he hostile, or was he?
Oh no, he
halfway
was
nice.
trying to be real friendly.
Okay.
He always apologized for not offering me a cigarette when he was smoking and blowing smoke in my face when I was ready to leave, or when he was ready to get rid of me.
I'm sure his concern was genuine, wasn't it?
Oh, it was genuine to make me want a cigarette,
Yeah.
which
Did you smoke at the time?
I did.
Okay. At some point during one of our conversations, you mentioned a bunch of tall blondes. Tell us about that.
Well, I've seen a group of tall, good-looking blondes marching outside of the window where we were being interrogated, all very obviously pregnant. So I asked him about those women, and he said, well, they're here for research purposes. And that's all he said about it. I assume that was part of the Aryan race program.
Aryan race extension program or whatever.
But I don't know that. I assume that.
Then from there you were shipped to a camp of some kind.
From there we shipped to Stalag Luft 4. The officers went to Stalag Luft 3. That was the one up the bar, and that's the one over at Gross Taikow.
Enlisted and commissioned were separated.
We're separate.
Okay. you were sergeant at the time?
Yes, I was a sergeant.
All right. So you got, how did you get there? By a train, truck?
By train.
By train.
Right through Berlin.
Right through Berlin. And it obviously had been bombed by that time.
Oh, yes.
Did they have the windows covered in your train car, or could you see out?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't remember.
So you possibly could see what?
Oh, we damaged everything, I think.
Was it still just your crew, or were there other POWs?
I don't remember.
Don't remember. All right, you got to Luft 3 was yours, or 4? 4. Luft 4, and how far from the train station was it? Did you have to march, walk?
About, I don't know, 2 or 3 kilometers.
Okay.
Mile or a mile and a half.
You walked that.
We walked there. Yeah.
How many in your group, George, by that time? Any idea?
I remember just our crew, the enlisted men on our crew.
Okay.
There were 5 of us.
How many people do you think were there at the time when you arrived?
About 2,500.
2,500. So 5 of you arrived. Was there any kind of greeting or orientation, or did they just open the gates and you wandered in? Or?
No, I don't remember too much about what went on. That they searched us again.
Well, the reason I was asking is we've all seen movies that how guys are introduced to their surroundings. I was just curious if you remembered any.
That's where I met Big Stoop the first time.
Big Stoop was
one of the guards.
One of the guards.
About 6 foot 4 inches tall.
Stoop, did that? What did stoop mean? Like in stupid, or?
You're too young to remember Smiling Jack comic strip.
I am too young. Okay.
Big Stoop was one of the characters in that comic strip.
All right.
And we also had Smiling Jack, the Green Hornet. There's all our names for the guards.
And some of them you probably can't repeat with Sandy over here. All right. You walked in. Did they assign you to a barracks or what?
Oh yes.
They called them barracks.
They called them barracks.
You were
we filled up the compound A. Our radio operator went on over to compound B, which was not finished yet. They were still working on it.
Did you stay with some of your crew there where you were assigned?
Yes.
Okay. They had a bunk for you?
They had a bunk for me.
Okay. At some point, I noticed in the material here you said, and talk about too young. Tell us what your mattress was Excelsior. What does Excelsior mean?
Well, that is real thin strips of wood. We used to use a lot of Excelsior here in this country, not typical German. And it's wood that's shaved down kind of like straw.
Okay.
And it was in a burlap bag. That was our mattress.
That was your mattress.
And the bunk had 6 slats in it.
6 wooden slats.
6 wooden
So
slats.
it probably was kind of like this, wasn't it, when you laid on it?
Oh yeah, you had to arrange the slats to where they hit the parts of your body to keep you up.
All right. Were you assigned jobs?
No.
Okay, you were not. And why was that?
Well, the sergeants didn't work. And knowing the German army, rank is everything. Sergeants did not work, they supervised.
And the Germans honored that, even though you were in a different army. Okay.
Yes.
So who did the cooking? Or I guess, were you all sergeants there, or were there?
We were all sergeants in that camp. Yeah.
So somebody had to do the cooking other than yourself.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But it was not the Germans. We had to furnish our own cooks. We had some of our prisoners was doing the cooking.
Even though they were sergeants, they were doing the cooking.
And doing cooking for us.
For you, which probably wasn't a bad job, was it?
Wouldn't have been if I had anything to eat.
Well,
But they
okay.
didn't have anything to cook.
So not necessarily warm in where the fires were because there was nothing to warm up. All right, you're there and you're settled in. May not be the right word, but you're settled in. Barracks surrounded by fencing, barbed wire. Typically, we see in movies there's an area close to the wall, the fence, where you're not supposed to go. Was that delineated for you?
No, that was there's what we call the guardrail. It's probably 20, 30 feet inside the barbed wire. It's about 2x4 on posts about 2 foot high. And we could walk along that. But we were fair game to shoot at if we stepped over.
And there were guard towers every so many feet.
There were
so.
guard towers there with machine guns.
George,
they had live bullets too.
Was the compound lighted at night?
Oh yes.
Okay, even though we may have had night bombers, they would light the POW camps.
Well, if there was a bombing raid, they'd turn the lights out.
All right. If they had an alert.
An alert, they'd
All right.
turn it out. Yeah.
Well, here's all of you guys with some local guys of your kind were the cooks. What about doctors and dentists and healthcare? Was there such a thing?
Yes, they had supposedly a hospital there, and one of my friends had a piece of flak in his shoulder, and he went to the hospital on sick call. They had sick call just like the regular army, and he went over there, and of course they had nothing to work with, but this doctor heated a coat hanger and seared the wound where it went in there, and
Left the shrapnel in him?
left the shrapnel in it. He died with that shrapnel in it.
Did he die as a result of the?
No,
Died from something else.
died of a heart attack in Apache Junction, Arizona.
All right. Later on. Okay. Carried it with him
Several
all the
years
time.
later.
And what about dentist?
I don't think they had a dentist. I don't remember.
Okay. What about? I understand that there was a padre that was there, an ally to padre.
An English padre.
Yeah.
And everybody got pretty well acquainted with the padre, I think. And I don't remember his name now. But anyway, the amusing thing was the German Air Force liked to give us a little air show once in a while. And we had a flight of 3 Focke-Wulf 190s give us a buzz job one day, and the chaplain was out in the middle of the compound shaking his fist saying, "Crash, you bastards, crash." And one of them did. So
he went up in your estimations, right?
everybody thought he had a direct
line
connection. They believed in him from then on.
To the big pilot in the sky. Were you all Air Force prisoners? I mean, was there any infantry? Or all Air Force. Which was why the Germans probably wanted to put on a little air show for you.
Oh,
All right, you mentioned there was nothing to cook. Nothing. Obviously, there had to be something. Tell us a little bit about what kind of food you did have.
well, we had some dehydrated sauerkraut sometimes, barley soup, potato soup, and we got bread once in a while, special bread for prisoners.
What made it special?
Well, the Germans called it a formula. They didn't have a recipe, it was a formula. I have a copy of what it was. If I remember right, it was 40% molded rye, 40% ground sugar beets, 10% wood flour, which was
What's wood flour?
sawdust,
Sawdust. Okay, wood flour.
and then the other part was straw and grass. 10% strong.
That added the bulk to that.
That
That added the bulk. And what wood didn't make it into your mattress, made it into your tummy.
Yeah.
All right.
That's one thing that did not have a shortage of in Germany was wood.
Wood. Did you ever have meat?
Oh, once in a while the soup had little pieces of meat in it.
Okay. Did you have any idea of the origin of the meat? Where?
Oh no, we always had a name for it.
Now Sandy's here, George. Be careful.
Well, I'm not going to say anything that she'd be embarrassed by.
All right.
We thought maybe sometimes it was a horse or a mule or a goat. We wasn't too particular about what kind of meat it was.
Probably worms. Worms at some point, probably.
Oh yes, we had worms. That was more protein.
All right. Did you get Red Cross packages?
Occasionally.
Okay. Not on a regular basis.
Not on a regular basis.
Okay.
The Red Cross said we were supposed to get one a week, but we never did. We was lucky if we got a half one every 2 or 3 weeks.
I would guess the Red Cross was sending them. Do you think the Germans kept them, or they didn't get them to you? Or?
They said they couldn't get them there because we bombed the railroads.
So it was your fault you didn't get the packages, right?
Yeah, but I thought
at least the Allies.
Yeah.
All right, so this is in mid 1944. What you were moving on towards Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are American holiday. Well, Christmas is everybody's holiday, but Thanksgiving. What any reminiscence about Thanksgiving and Christmas?
No, but I'll tell you something else that was kind of surprising. We got a half a cup of beer on the 4th of July.
Is that right?
Celebrate the 4th of July.
Where did the Germans get the beer? Did they have it themselves all the time?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You've been to Germany, you know the Germans like their beer.
Right. All right. So they even on our holiday, special holiday, you got a little bit of beer.
We got a little bit of beer, not enough to really enjoy it, but enough to say we had beer.
Had beer. How did spending this time in camp? How did you get any news? How did you know how the war was proceeding, or did you know anything other than what they told you?
Well, we didn't for a long time there, because when we first got there, the camp was just opened. It hadn't been open very long, and later on, we had news. We had a clandestine radio.
How I'm going to keep interrupting you, but how did you get a radio? Did somebody make it, or did somebody get it in there?
It was made
from scratch.
Well, the Red Cross parcels had a lot to do with it, with the tin cans and tin foil. It was there.
Do you think that was intentional on the part of the Red Cross?
No, it was not intentional.
Okay.
But we didn't throw any tin cans away. They were valuable items.
Right. The Germans were not familiar with the fact that you could do this kind of thing, or?
Oh, they knew it. They knew we had the radio, but they didn't know where it was.
What? Would you pick up BBC?
BBC, yes.
And somebody was smart enough in the group to know how to make a radio. Probably more than one.
Well, there might have been, I don't know, but all the news was transmitted or passed on by walking around this camp right next to the guardrail. We'd walk around there in pairs, 2, 3, 4, and
always the same direction, counterclockwise, clockwise, or?
Yeah, always the same direction. I hadn't really thought about that till now.
Always the same direction.
It's always the same direction, and that's the way all news was passed. And certain people in each barracks in each room would gather the news, and after lights out, that's when the news was passed on.
Well, obviously by that point we were winning. Did you see any difference in the attitude or the actions of the guards or the Germans that were there?
Well, we had one group of men come in one time where they put the dogs on them and jabbed them in the butt with bayonets. They treated them pretty rough. Ran them all the way from the railroad station to the camp. That was because Captain Pritchard, the German commandant, his wife and daughter had been killed in a bombing raid the week before. So
he was going to get back some way to.
He was.
Yeah, and that's understandable, you know. It is. Were there escape plans formulated, or?
Well, been worked on, but that camp was kind of rough to get out of. Really, the tunnels was out of the question.
Why?
We had 2 rows of barbed wire on the way between compounds and to the outside, with a deep ditch in between us, probably 6 to 8 foot deep. And water level there at that particular area was about 10 to 12 foot.
Okay.
So if you got down deep enough to go under the ditch, you'd flood it out.
The water table would have gotten you.
Yeah. So
Well, you couldn't have spent all your time walking around the compound, did you? Did you have playing cards? Did you have games or softball or any of that kind of stuff? Or?
oh yeah, had some softball we made. I don't remember what we made them out of. And the Germans had given us some wood to make bats out of. And we had softball games. We eventually got some books in. We made some playing cards out of some cardboard we got one time. And I got pictures at home of that playing cards that had big, they just wore out. There wasn't any corners on them anymore.
So you knew from the back what they were, but it didn't matter.
Oh, everybody knew what the other one had.
And that's where you learned to play bridge, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you still today play bridge?
Still today I play bridge. I'm not very good at it today. I wasn't very good then.
Well, we have about 15 minutes left, George. I'd like to go on. I can go on for 2 hours, but I'd like to, at some point, they decided you had to move west. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Take us through some of that.
Well, the reason this was in February, January, a lot of part of January and February 45. The Russians were closing in, and our camp was in northern Poland. And they had already, Russians had taken Stettin. That's on the bay where the Oder River jumped into the North Sea. So they had us blocked out by train, and they started broken us up into groups and marched us out of camp. All on February 6th, though. They evacuated the camp that day.
February the 6th, what was the temperature?
I don't know, cold.
Cold.
And snow on the ground. But
did they tell you why you were leaving?
no, but we knew it because we could hear the guns.
They were that close.
Okay. And so we got up to Spanamundi. There we got a ferry across the bay.
Did you walk, or?
We walked up to there.
How far was that, George?
Probably 30, 40 miles maybe.
In the snow.
In the snow.
How long did it take you?
2 days.
2 days. Did you stop at night and sleep, or did you just keep on going?
Yeah, they got accommodations for us in a field.
Okay. Nice. You had the clothes on your back, whatever you owned, I guess. Did you have you wouldn't have had a pack, but a package or a carry-all or something?
We had backpacks, believe it or not.
Is that right?
That we made out of shirts like you were wearing right there.
Okay.
That was a
and created a
backpack out of it. We had, well, the Red Cross had got us some needles and thread earlier, so we all had needles and thread, and we made backpacks out of shirts.
Did they inspect them before you left, or did they care at that point what you had?
They didn't care at that point.
Were the German guards as anxious to get away as you guys were?
I think they were, but they didn't want to have anything to do with the Ruskies.
That's what I've heard. All right, so you get to this ferry, and you go from where to where?
And then we crossed there, and we get on a train. They put us in a boxcar. I don't remember how many of them was in a boxcar, but we were crowded. We weren't in there very long, probably 6 or 8 hours, something like that. And they got us out of the boxcar.
Generally headed west?
We were still headed west.
What was the attitude, the feel of the prisoners? Was this a good thing? You were glad to be moving west? Or
Well, I don't
didn't know?
We didn't know.
You were on the train 6 or 8 hours, then what?
Then we started marching again, going west.
Still cold, still in the snow.
Still cold, still in the snow.
And how long did that last?
Until May 2nd.
And started February the 6th?
Yeah, right.
How much of that 3 months were you walking?
We usually walk some about every day. Not every day, 2 days.
When you weren't, you had accommodations again in a field, probably.
No, if we were lucky, we were in a barn.
What did you have to eat for 3 months on the move?
Potatoes.
Did they supply them, or did you steal them, get them out of fields? Or?
Well, there was 4 of us teamed up together. Jack Lindsay was from Pennsylvania. Bob Gibb, the one that had the flak in his shoulder, he was the coat hanger, was from Delaware, Minnesota. Max Coleman, Hudson, Kansas, and me.
4 of you kind of buddied up.
We buddied up, and we had jobs among the 4 of us. Jack's job was to find a place for us to bed down for the night, and he'd take our blankets and spread them out wherever we were going to sleep that night. And Bob would start scrounging and finding some wood and build a fire. Max Coleman and I, we'd start scrounging to see if we could find something to eat.
Okay, George, bear with me. There's the 4 of you in a group of how many? 2,500, 2,000?
No, they'd broken us up into a smaller group, probably 30, 40 of us.
Okay, 30 or 40 of you then. But then all the other guys would be doing the same thing, looking for food, looking for a place to sleep.
They were, but I don't think they were quite as organized as we were.
Sufficient as you guys were. All right. It was cold and snowy still. Did you have no blankets or anything, just your clothes?
Well, we had I don't think we had a blanket piece.
Okay.
And really the lifesaver is those big GI overcoats. We all had one of those.
Well, now you wouldn't have been in the aircraft with a GI overcoat. Where'd you get it?
The Red Cross had gotten that into us. They got us in some clothing.
Well, good.
And blankets, stuff like that.
George, we continue to run out of time here. Got about 7 minutes left. When were you liberated?
May 2nd.
May the 2nd. Where?
Don't know where the name of the town was, but it was east of Lunenburg, Germany, on the Elbe River.
And there was the 30 of you guys, the 30 Allied prisoners, and some German guards.
Right.
And you were liberated by somebody, and they in turn were captured by the same people. And who were you liberated?
The liberators was 2 Canadian enlisted men and an English officer.
Okay. Did they just happen upon you, or did you walk up to them and say, here we are?
They came through the little town where we were. We were bedded down in a barn. And took the guards' rifles away from them.
And the German guards probably didn't care, did they?
No.
What Can you tell me what your thoughts were at that point?
No, I can't.
Can't remember. All right, so then they got you, and where did they take you?
They didn't take us anywhere.
Okay.
And
Where did you go?
the next day we liberated a 1939 Chevrolet truck that had been converted to burn wood and drove into Lindenburg.
Well, now, how many of them? 4 of you?
4 of us.
So you were kind of on your own. The other 26 guys did their own thing, and you did.
We loaded all of them we could in the truck with us.
And liberated. You didn't steal. You liberated this truck
Right.
and took it into a town. And then what?
And
Was the town in American hands or Allied hands?
in British hands.
British hands. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
And there we decided that Max, Bob, and Jack and I decided that we needed a little more sophisticated transportation than a truck. So there we liberated a German Jeep.
Right.
And
Who did you liberate it from?
I don't know who.
It was just there.
It was there, and we just took it.
All right.
And we was going to go across the Elbe River, and the British officer told us we couldn't take that across the river because that was for military traffic. We tried to convince him we were military, and he said no, we weren't military. Of course, to pull the Jeep off to one side and leave it running, and they'd take care of it. Later, we could walk across the bridge. But he was taking a convoy across the pontoon bridge, and all of a sudden there was somebody that was a switch on a truck and left a little gap in there that Jeep would fit in. So the Jeep got in between them, and they let us go across the bridge because they had to back up the convoy to get us out.
Was it a German bridge still standing, existing, or was it we
No.
made it, the Allies made it?
The Allies made it with a pontoon bridge.
Okay, you get across the pontoon bridge, and then where did you go?
We stopped on down the road about 20, 30 miles, maybe not that far, I don't know. Jack had a very severe case of dysentery, and we stopped to the British camp to get him some medical help and get some hot food and warm clothes for us. We're supposed to get a shower and some hot food there. We didn't get the hot food. We didn't get any clean clothes. And Jack, they sent him over to the dispensary, and that's where we lost him. And so then there was just 3 of us. And later we saw Jack after we got back to the States. And
All right.
he had never gotten medical attention either.
George, we're unfortunately out of time. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for your service. As far as I'm concerned, the best part of your whole story is the fact that I've been able to make your acquaintance over the years. And you're certainly one of my heroes and a hero to a lot of other guys. Thank you, George. We appreciate it. Okay.
Push it again.
Good morning. Today is January the 29th, 2008. We are at the Air and Military Museum of the Ozarks, continuing our interview with Mr. George Copeland. We'll try to take up where we left off on the last tape. Good morning, George.
Good morning, Warner.
Last time we visited about a few things, and I would like to revisit a couple of them. We talked a little bit about the food, and then we got around to, I believe, to Thanksgiving. We got around to Christmas, and at Christmas you were allowed to walk around the compound and sing Christmas carols.
This is after dark.
After dark. What significance would dark or not dark make?
Normally we were locked in the barracks at dark.
Okay, so that was a special.
That was a perk the Germans gave us for Christmas, I guess.
Did the German guards participate at all singing, do you think? Or couldn't tell?
No, they didn't.
No. They Of course, I guess they celebrated Christmas just like we did. And,
Oh yeah,
a lot of them thought God was on their side, didn't they?
yeah. Except Hitler said there was no God. But,
Right.
There was. A lot of them did not believe that.
I'm sure that's right. But at the same time, you still hear stories of them believing and so on. Okay, you walked around. How long were you out there? Do you have any idea?
We were probably out there till midnight.
That was a real treat, wasn't it?
Yeah, get to see the stars.
Hadn't been a long time. Was it cold? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
Well, we were very close to the Baltic Sea, so it's cold up there.
Yeah,
in the wintertime.
Yeah. You have in your notes that I've looked at, you had a note about a Christmas program. Tell us about the Christmas program.
Well, this was a deal where they just got together and decided to make a program, and there was several of them that was frustrated actors, I guess. Some of them dressed as women, and I don't know where they got the clothes.
Right.
But anyway, they had a stage show, a Christmas stage show.
And probably not too bad a production, was it?
No, it wasn't. They was pretty good actors.
Yeah, considering all. Well, you mentioned in here Craigs, Kreiges. What are Craigs?
Craigies.
Craigies.
That's what we call one another. We're all Craigies.
Okay.
That derived from the word Kriegsgefangenen Lager.
Say that again.
Kriegsgefangenen Lager.
Kriegsgefangenen Lager. What did that mean?
Krieg is war, Gefangenen is prisoner, and Lager is camp.
Okay.
The German language, they combine words to make one big word.
Right.
That's why you see these long words and it scares people. It's actually several words.
I didn't know that. You can break it out into, if you know how, you can break it out into.
There's a lot of similarities in German and English.
Yeah, probably. All right, tell me about the crepe paper for decorating. That's kind of a cute.
Well, the Germans gave us some crepe paper for decorating for Christmas.
Would it? I'm keep interrupting you, but would you consider it the same kind of crepe paper we think about now?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And they were different colors. And so we had our rooms decorated a little bit with the strips of crepe paper. I guess they didn't think that we could use crepe paper for any means of escape or anything.
What about the foam you have here?
We made foam from soap. We had excess soap that came in the Red Cross parcels because we didn't use all of it. Not that we didn't need to, but
No hot water.
there's no hot water,
Okay.
and it's kind of snow on the ground. You don't want to use cold water to bathe in very much, so we used the soap for other purposes. And one of the things we did was make a real thick foam out of it, and that was what we used for different sculptures.
You mean foam like you might foam your hair up?
It was foam like styrofoam, I guess.
Styrofoam. I've never heard of such. Max Coleman, one of your roommates, sculptured a set of gunner wings. Is that correct?
That's correct. And he had a piece of cardboard. I don't have no idea where he got the cardboard, but he cut it out in the shape of wings and then used the crepe paper to get coloring, to color the soap suds. And they were colored. And they looked pretty good.
I'll be darned. You had this as a decoration till when?
Till we had an inspection. They came in and counted the bed slats. We were allowed 6 slats in our bed. And they came in and checked that and see if we had any tunnels started or whatever. And so Big Stoop, one of the guards there, he's 6'4", 6'5", he's a big guy. And we call him Big Stoop. Most of our guards was named after the Smiling Jack funny paper cartoons.
Okay.
Big Stoop was one of the characters.
Did some of them have names you couldn't repeat on film?
No,
No? Okay.
that Big Stoop, Green Hornet, Iron Cross, Chick. They all had their
And
names.
obviously middle or nicknames.
Don't know the real name. However, if you go online to Love 4, the Big Stoop was mentioned quite a bit in the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. In what vein?
He had a mean streak.
Was he on trial there?
No.
Huh?
I don't know how much truth there was in it, but I had heard that right after we were liberated that Big Stoop didn't live very long after that.
Some people didn't forget
They
or
did not
forget.
forget.
I imagine I can understand.
They had their revenge.
Right.
Now all I know is rumors.
Yeah. So you had these wings, and still Big Stoop came in, and it looks like here he helped you keep it, or wanted to help keep it. Yeah.
We had all our mattresses and blankets and everything was piled out in the middle of the floor, and Big Stoop is very carefully placed them on top. He held them while all this other stuff was going on, and laid them right on top of the pile, very carefully.
And then something happened to them.
And Max come in and stuck his hand right in the middle of it. And it was soft soap, so he ruined it.
It says, due to the coal shortage and the cold temperature is when we found that a cake of soap makes a tremendously hot fire.
Yes, it does.
Did you throw it in there like a briquette?
We did, and it really blazed. And soap burns very well.
I'll be darned.
So that's something that most people don't realize.
No. And you all smelled alike, so you didn't care. I mean, at that point,
we all smelled rice.
Smelled alike. You were supposed to receive pay, and you didn't. That's correct.
No, we didn't. Instead, they supplied us with necessities, they called it, which was matches. We had razor blades. Now, those were necessities.
Did you use the razor blades with cold water and no shaving cream?
Oh, yes.
Did you? Yeah. Shaving cold water and apparently the soap.
Yeah. And then we had pipe cleaners. No pipe, but we had pipe cleaners.
What for?
I don't know what they thought we needed pipe cleaners for, but we had pipe cleaners, and we used the pipe cleaners, used the wire out of it.
Yeah.
They were part of the things that we used to make the mixers, to mix the soap suds, and also to mix the powdered milk with the water.
Right. Amazing what you can do with a little imagination.
As a friend of mine says, we didn't even throw away a nail. We'd find some use of it.
Right.
And we did.
Necessity is the mother of invention. You said consisted of sergeants that were not required to work. Is that correct? Did they work?
No, we didn't have any duties at all as far as the Germans was concerned. So all we had to do was put in our days and nights, and waiting for the war to be over, and
find some way to fill the days and nights.
Yeah, the Red Cross did get in some books for us. I read a lot of Western books. I'm not a Western fan, but I read quite a few. And
you said some way to spend the night. Did they turn the lights out at dark, or could you sleep 8 or 10 hours, or what?
Yeah.
If there was nothing else to do?
Well, you think about this. We were up north. It got dark, about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and didn't get daylight until 8, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So
Did you have lights on in the barracks?
we had each room had one light bulb right up in the center.
Well, you may have said before, but how big was the room and how many people were in it?
There's 24 of us in the room.
24 in the room.
We had bunks 3 high, and there was 8 bunks.
How big was the room, George, approximately?
Well, I don't know. Let's see, about 16, 18 by 18, something like that.
So you had 6 sets of 3 bunks. Was
We had 8 sets.
eight sets, right? 8 times 3, 24, right? There was no running water in there or bathroom
No
facilities.
running water or
anything?
bathroom in it, no.
What?
We had furniture, we had a table, like a picnic table, and we had a small stove, which is about 8 inches in diameter and 2 foot high, and that was it. That's just furniture besides the beds.
What? How many blankets? 1 blanket? 2 blankets
2 blankets
per guy?
per guy, yeah.
No pillow, probably.
No
No.
pillow.
And then the Excelsior mattress you spoke of earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Slept with your clothes on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Silly question.
Uh,
You also said along here that part of your day or nights or whatever were spent talking about the future, and when you got home, plans were made for. Were you in the camp with anybody from your home state of Kansas?
Max Coleman was from Hutchinson, Kansas.
And you guys were roommates?
Yeah, he was in the room.
Okay, just by coincidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was the other. I think there was a couple of them from Kansas besides
I'll be
me.
darned.
I don't know. Don't remember.
Do you remember what kind of plans you talked about? Probably had a lot of time.
Well, no. I talked about probably going back on the farm. Another fellow that I talked with, his father had a chicken processing plant down in Jacksonville, Florida. So he thought he'd go back to the chicken processing plant,
Right.
which he did.
Yeah.
And
Were any of your roommates from your crew?
yes,
Okay.
there was 4 of us.
Were you buddies with them before you got to the camp, or?
Well, yeah,
So.
more or less.
Yeah.
The tail gunner and one of the waist gunners and the flight engineer and me were all in the room.
So you had a mix of officer and enlisted.
No,
Flight engineer would be enlisted. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The I know now that you are a bridge player, and I think you learned to play bridge under those conditions, right?
that's right, we did. I had a guy, E.B. Taylor. We called him Eager Beaver. I don't remember what his name was, but we called him Eager Beaver. He was the bridge player, and he got us all playing bridge.
Okay. With a deck of cards that soon wore out.
Yeah,
Did you get cards with the Red Cross?
yes, we did.
Okay.
When they finally got there,
So you probably learned a lot of things, but one thing you learned was to play bridge and still doing it, right?
yeah, and learned a lot about people and
Oh.
got to associate that close.
I'll bet that's right. Goodness. You you practiced your algebra on getting the square root of numbers.
Well, that
Good mind exercise.
didn't have Sudokus at that time, but we'd probably been making our own if we
Right. They made solid wood model airplanes. Scrounged from the attic of your barracks,
and whittled out with the razor blades and pocket knife and
they allow you to have a pocket knife.
small one.
Okay, they didn't think that would be used to
No.
escape. Probably letting you have that was a good way to keep you busy instead of figuring out how to escape.
Might have been.
You alluded earlier, you figured out which of the guards would speak English, even though apparently they all acted like they didn't.
And I'm sure they all did.
Yeah. I think also you mentioned you didn't get all your Red Cross parcels on a regular basis because our Air Force was active, yeah, which was kind of a mixed emotion, wasn't it? Good for them, but I want my packages.
Well, I don't know. We survived.
Did you see many Allied aircraft?
No.
Never. Too far north or
Too far east.
east?
We were in Poland, remember?
Right.
And that was east of Berlin, another 100 miles.
So you didn't really see. Did any ever fly over that you can remember?
No. I never saw any Russian either, and the Russians were very close.
But once in a while, a German would come over and put on a little show for you. Or,
Oh, yes.
okay. Hang with me. All right, you. About what time of year was it when they decided that you guys were going to have to move?
We marched out of camp on February 6th.
February the 6th. Any idea what the temperature was?
No, but there was snow on the ground.
And how many of you would have been going? The whole camp?
Yeah, they took out the whole camp, and there was 10,000 altogether in the camp.
And this thing started, was there any provision made for food for you to have or take with you? Or
No.
so there are 10,000 guys going to march or walk down a road and no food. That's just incredible. Where were you? Towards the front, towards the back, in the middle?
I don't know, they took us out in groups, probably 40 or 50 in a group.
Boy, that'd take forever to get 10,000 guys out.
I don't know whether they all got out on February 6th or not. We got out in the morning on February 6th.
Okay, so you got in small groups of 30 or 40, how many guards?
I don't know, probably 6 or 7.
6 or 7. They were walking, they were armed. Did they have any provision for food?
No?
No? No water either? Of course.
Well, there's supposed to have been a wagon follow us, but I don't know whether there was or not.
Yeah. Of course, you could, I guess, eat snow to get water probably, but just did without?
Yeah.
Goodness. Was there, and you knew where you were and how far away, was there any thought of escaping, or was it, I'm not sure how to say it, safety in numbers, or?
Well, yes, there was thought of escape. Max Coleman and I had made plans to escape, and our friend Bob Gibb, a little older than we were, a little more level-headed, talked us out of it. That we were safer where we were than we would be out by ourselves.
Right. And you were 21 at the time.
A little older than that.
A little older than that. But
24.
he was older, had more level head, right?
Yeah, he was 5 or 6 years older.
Okay. So you're walking along, heading west, basically. Colder than the devil in the snow. How many miles do you think you could make a day?
Well, I don't know. You got a list of them there. How many I made?
Was it a fast pace because of trying to keep warm, or slow pace dragging along, or do you remember?
They determined the pace we walked.
Okay.
When we started, when we stopped, all that. So.
Okay. The reason behind the whole march was because the Russians were coming from the east.
They were from the east. If you look at a map, they'd already captured Stettin, which was south of Peenemünde, and that was just a big bay. and we were trapped up there in the corner. And only way for us to get out was cross up at Pinamundi, or Spinamundi, I guess, not Pinamundi. And we had to cross the bay on a ferry boat, and that's how they got us out.
Why? I'm curious to know. Do you have any idea why they cared? Obviously, they didn't want to be captured by the Germans, but why did they care that you guys were or not?
We were a bargaining chip.
And what? And how? In what manner?
We got so many of your people here. What can we get in return for them?
Okay, Americans were using Americans as a bargaining chip. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Could you hear the Russian artillery
Oh yeah,
that close to you?
we hear small arms fire.
Oh my, really, really close. You got to this bay, and they had a ferry there. How many of you got on the ferry at a time?
I don't know, probably 100 or more.
So small, but a small ferry.
Mm.
And they're going to take 10,000 guys across.
I don't know where they all went.
Yeah.
There might have been more than that ferry.
Yeah.
But we were close to Coburg. I don't know whether you remember your history or not about Coburg. But Coburg was where Werner von Braun was testing his rockets.
I didn't recognize that name. I recognized Pinamundi, but
And we could see the rocket trails from camp.
yes,
we were that close.
Did you know what they were, or
Oh, we knew they were rockets.
rockets, but not a concept of what they were doing or where they were going or how big or
No.
whatever they were. Yeah,
We couldn't see them, we could see the trail.
right. So you get on the ferry and you cross the bay, and then where are you?
We were up along the north coast of Germany, close to the Baltic,
Walking west.
walking west.
Did you have I think you mentioned earlier that you each had made a backpack of sorts to carry your
Sure,
belongings.
yeah. Mhm.
Did you have your 2 blankets in that?
Oh yes.
And then at night, you laid on the ground, obviously, and tried to find a place that.
Yeah, we paired up to use one another's body heat. They had an old army overcoat, the big old wool overcoat, which that was really how we survived, was the overcoats.
Where did you get those? Because you don't have them on the airplane.
No, but the Red Cross has gotten some into us.
Okay, good. How many days did you walk? Do you have any idea?
Well, we walked until May 2nd,
From February the
February
6th?
6th to May 2nd.
My gosh.
Was not every day, but I have a log of it there.
Right?
And I kept a log on the march. And Jack Lindsay kept a log, and Max Coleman and I kept a log, and we compared them after we got through to see whether we were anywhere close to one another or not. And we were pretty accurate with one another, so.
And they were all in your group of 30.
That
30 or 40, whatever.
I mentioned Bob Gibb, Jack Lindsay, Max Coleman, and myself. Those 4 of us, we walked together. We marched together.
Marched together.
And we camped together.
When was the last time you had a haircut before February the 6th?
Well, I don't know. One time in there, we
Well-
got the bright idea we'd shave our head and grow a beard.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, did you have a haircut between February 6th and May 2?
Oh, yeah.
Did it as you went along?
Oh, no, not there.
Okay. So you look like shaggy dogs when you got out of there.
Yeah, I wish I brought a picture. I had a picture taken on May 9th.
Bring that in sometime, will you?
Okay.
I'd like to see it. Did you shave in this 3 or 4 month period?
I don't know. We may have.
3 months. Just don't remember.
I don't remember.
All right, tell us about.
If I did, I shaved in hot water because we were allowed to build a campfire.
Build campfires. That was probably a treat.
Yeah, we had hot water.
Tell us, you mentioned a tractor. Tell us about this tractor you found.
It's a pretty good tractor compared to what we'd been used to. It was one cylinder and a flywheel on like the old two-cylinder John Deere's, but had a silver tube in the head, and you had to take a blowtorch and heat the silver tube with a kind of a semi-diesel, I guess you'd say, and then rock the flywheel back and forth till it fired. And when it fired, you didn't know which direction it would run. So then if it ran for a little bit, you'd throttle it back till it wouldn't go all the way through compression and open the throttle again to get it to run the right direction.
And why was that important, running the right direction? Did that make the tractor go frontwards or backwards?
That made the tractor go frontwards or
That
backwards.
was the key to it, was which way. So you
had to get it synchronized with the transmission.
all right. So you're walking along, marching along, and there's this guy out in the field with a tractor. And take it from there. You saw the tractor, and
Oh, the tractor wasn't running when we found it.
okay.
This was on the Liberation Day of May 3rd, day after we were liberated.
Okay, that wasn't along the way then.
No, that wasn't along the way. This is when we were looking for a way to move on west to get with friendly troops and not walk.
All right. Go ahead. Continue the story.
So we figured we'd walk far enough, and
How far had you walked, do you think, in total?
about 600 miles,
600 miles.
more or less. If you add all those kilometers up and
Incredible.
convert it, it figured out about 600 miles. And, so we figured we'd walk far enough, we needed to ride. And we found this truck that burned wood instead of gasoline. And we couldn't get it started. So that's when we found the tractor. And I went over to see the German farmer about using the tractor. And he couldn't understand my German or English until I took the machine gun off my shoulder and acted like I was going to use it, which I wasn't, but he didn't know that.
So here you are, you're a prisoner of war in a group heading west with guards, and you have a machine gun.
This was after the guards had been disarmed.
Did you guys disarm them yourself?
Well, this British officer that came through with the two Canadian enlisted men that liberated us.
Okay, so you had met them and then decided it's time to keep on going. Okay, you had a gun by that time. Now the guards were prisoners.
Well, they left. I don't know where
Well,
they
they
went.
just took on off. Okay.
You can't blame them for leaving.
No. So okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you all the time, but you got this vehicle, go ahead.
And so then he began to understand my little bit of German and English.
With the machine gun.
Understood very well.
Yeah.
So he started the tractor and come over and pulled the truck. It might have been his truck, I don't know. Didn't care. But
Right.
anyway, he got the tractor started, and all those Kriggies that was walking, we picked up in the truck. We had a truckload. And
Who was driving?
Bob Gibb.
Bob Gibb, okay.
He was a mechanic and he was a little older, a little more level-headed than
Right.
Jack, Max, and I.
Right.
And so anyway, he was driving. He'd been raised in a garage, so he had knew more about this stuff than
Right.
we did. He had been a flight engineer too, so he went through the A&E school. And I don't know, but I imagine he was a good one. But anyway, we got this truck going, picked up all the Kriggies we could find walking, as long as we had room for them. And so I met one man here in Springfield. They said him and his buddy saw this truck coming along, they were going to get on the truck, but there wasn't room for them, so they had to keep walking.
So that was you guys.
That was us, I
I'll be
guess.
darned.
And,
Well, at this time, were there other British soldiers around? You were going through friendly lines?
wasn't any soldiers around till we got to Lunenburg.
Well, how these two British guys, you three British guys you met up with, how'd they get over there?
They had a Jeep.
They were scouting?
I guess they were scouting,
Oh,
I don't know. But there was a short battle there.
And these guys are out in the middle of Germany, three of them together.
In a Jeep. And,
American Jeep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the guys in our group heard the rifle fire, and he went over and stuck his head around the corner of this barn, which was a stone barn, and about that time a bullet whizzed off the rock above his head, and he jumped back and said, "That damn fool was shooting at me." I don't know what he expected. I was about 25, 30 yards over alongside the road in the ditch. I don't know what he expected when he stuck his head out.
Let me ask you this. You're marching along before you were liberated or found the British guys, and they found you. Were there German civilians along as you went? How did they react to you, or react at all?
Well, no, the Germans didn't react too much to it. We ran across some Polish people. Polish people were more or less prisoners of the Germans too, or slaves.
Slaves, right.
And when they could, they slipped us food.
All right. And I doubt the guards were very restrictive at that time, were they?
No, they weren't.
Yeah, they were.
An amusing incident happened one day after we'd been marching all day. One of the fellows in our room had been in our room. He was struggling along. We made some crack about him, barely making it. He said, "Oh, I'm back here helping the guard." And he runs over and grabs the guard's rifle and starts marching.
Well, the guards were probably smart enough to figure out we're highly outnumbered here, and
Well, the guard made no effort at all. And so pretty soon, Ted handed the rifle back to the guard.
the guards were probably as frightened as you were.
At that point, we were together on this deal.
Yeah. And you talked last time, we've kind of covered some of the same stuff, but you said last time you got on this bridge and you got into a space between vehicles and the...
That's how we crossed the Elbe River.
Right, and the British guy was shaking his fist and talking about your ancestry.
We got across. So.
All right, when did you first meet up with a number of Allied, which I guess would be British, Allied troops that you felt, well, we're out of this, we're safe, we're here?
Oh, we thought we were safe when we got into Lunenburg because there was British troops around there everywhere, even though they didn't want us crossing their damn bridge.
But you got across it.
So we got across it.
Right.
And then they told us that we could stop at a camp they had set up over on the other side, get some fresh clothes, hot bath, hot food, and get some medical attention. We all had dysentery.
Right.
And Jack was real bad. So we left him there with the idea that he'd get some medical attention, which he did not. But anyway, we went on with the British troops got trucks in for us, hauled us on back as far as Emsdetten.
How many of you were there by this time, or had you been separated from this large group? Were you just a group on your own?
There was just four of us. We were sticking together.
Four of you, so you had separated from the group of 40.
Or more.
Yeah. Just the four of you. Okay, so they didn't, thousands didn't show up there at the same time.
No, but they're gathered up. There's some few more come
Okay.
in. And of course, we had a truckload too.
Right, right.
And
Okay, you got fresh clothes, a hot shower, hot bath, or whatever.
no, we did not.
You didn't get it.
Yeah.
So
That's why we stopped to get it, and we didn't get it.
So you're still in your terrible clothes and your long hair and the lice and feeling terrible, and then what?
And well, we got chastised for eating cheese and bully beef. That the officer told us that was the British boys' tea rations. We told them we didn't think they were any hungrier than we were, so we helped ourselves.
Where did you find it? How did you find it?
Yeah, it started up alongside the road. So we stopped.
For the British guys, and you helped them,
We helped ourselves.
helped yourselves. Where did you go from there? Where did you finally get to a place that you could clean up? And
Yeah, we got into Emsden, and we got a shower, I guess.
provided
We didn't get any clean clothes.
the shower was provided by the British still.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And we were still in British hands.
I digress a minute. Where were you by that time? You would be seeing friendly aircraft.
No,
No, still didn't by that time. No. Okay.
and well, why would they be flying over the British lines?
Well, going to the German lines. Okay, I'm just curious. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is
The war was nearly over then.
right. So, yeah, exactly.
See, this was 5th or 6th, somewhere in there, of May.
Well, I keep going back to this. Tell me when you got some clean clothes.
We didn't get any clean clothes till we got into Brussels, and that was on May 8th.
Right.
May 7th.
May 7th, right?
And at Emsden, the British had got some C-47s in, and flew us into Brussels from there. We got in, they turned us over to the Canadians at that point.
A plane load of prison, ex-POWs.
Okay. And there's more than one. They scattered out and picked up others too. Brought them into Brussels, and
Still in your terrible old clothes.
and there they gave us another shower. And we got into the shower, and we came out, and they gave us Canadian uniforms. Sprayed us down with louse powder and said if we wanted our old clothes, we'd go back and get them. But I don't think anybody went back after them because they were full of lice.
So you don't have anywhere in a locker at home.
No.
Okay. What'd you do? You're cleaned up, had a shower, you got on your new British uniforms. What'd you do?
Well, we had a good meal. I don't remember what we had to eat, but I remember it was really a feast compared to what we had been having. And we went downtown in Brussels to where the little boy statue fountain was urinating on the swastika. And by that time, the news had got around that Germany had surrendered, and the party in Brussels had started. And we had this Belgian boy who said he was going to be our guide. He appointed himself as our guide. He'd get us whatever we wanted.
How old was he, George, do you think?
Probably 22, 3.
Okay.
And he said, "You want food?" Well, no, we'd had a big feast with the Canadians. He said, "You want liquor?" Well, we didn't think we could handle very much liquor at that point. He said, "You want women?" No, we don't want women. All we want to do is watch the party. So we stood down there on the street corner and watched the Belgian people celebrate until midnight or after before we went back to the camp.
To the camp. Were there many of your former POWs there in town with you?
I don't
Did
know.
you notice? Didn't notice? The Belgian people friendly to you at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very friendly.
Yeah. Good. All right. When did you start back home for real?
Well, from there they took us to Lahar, France, to Camp Lucky Strike. And we stayed in Lucky Strike until they'd gotten a ship in. They told us we could stay there as long as we wanted, and if we wanted to go somewhere to go, and if our name come up for a ship, that's all right. They just put our name down at the bottom of the list again. We'd work up again.
Well, now what was Lucky Strike?
That was a camp, the name of the camp. They had several camps there. They had Lucky Strike and Philip Morris. I don't know, they're named after cigarettes.
It was a gathering place for former POWs.
Well, it had been there during invasion too. They used it.
For what purpose was?
When they brought troops across the channel,
Okay, for
there was a staging area for them.
staging area as they headed towards the war,
Yeah.
the fighting, I mean, the combat. Okay, now it was being used for the assembly of the returning POWs.
And it was also a gathering place for troops coming back out of the war that was going to the Pacific, or
Right.
coming back to the States on their way to the Pacific.
What did you do with your days how many days were you there?
I don't know. We got there on May 8th, I guess, or 9th, somewhere in there. And I know it took us 7 days to cross the ocean. And then 2 or 3 days before we got home, and I got home on the 20th day of June.
You crossed the ocean, do you remember the name of the ship?
USS General Butler,
General Butler. How many people on it, do you think?
10,000.
10,000. I bet that was fun.
And they had facilities for six.
Right.
He had it sleeping on the decks for him.
Was it do you remember the weather? Was it good, decent weather for the
Decent
Atlantic?
weather.
Decent weather, good. You pulled into where?
Down at Newport News.
Newport News. And they
Camp
had
Patrick Henry.
to take you somewhere that had barracks and some medical facilities.
Camp Patrick Henry.
Camp Patrick Henry. Did they give you another uniform to go home in?
Oh, we've got uniforms in Lahar.
American uniforms. So they had enough uniforms for all these guys.
Yeah.
And you had the rank or the
No, we had
the
no
rate.
rank on it. We just had uniforms.
Okay. And coming back across, did you have any rank or rate or anything on? No.
No.
Was it very militarily disciplined on the boat coming back?
No.
No. That was behind you and
Well, we had a Marine sergeant of the guard there. Thought it was military, but he found out that it wasn't very military before he got to the States, because we'd convinced him otherwise.
were there enlisted and commissioned all together on the boat?
I don't remember any commissioned officers. There might have been.
Right. And you were
Probably
sergeant.
were.
Yeah. You were sergeant, so that's more than a private or corporal.
But if we had officers on board, they were mixed right in with us.
Okay. So
They
you didn't
weren't given any privileges.
just get everybody home. Okay, you're Patrick Henry, you've got a new uniform. You start home on a train, I guess.
Patrick Henry, they put us on passenger cars depending on where we were going. The car we were on was going to Leavenworth, Kansas.
Okay.
They were all going to separation centers,
Okay.
and they dropped them off between Patrick Henry and wherever they were going.
Drop the cars off.
Dropped the cars off,
Okay.
yeah. And so we got into Patrick Henry, not Patrick Henry, Leavenworth. Well, the evening, I guess.
Were you still with a couple of your buddies from Kansas?
I was with Max Coleman.
Max Coleman. Okay.
And so we were pulled in the yards in Kansas City, and alongside of us was a carload of Navy inductee waves.
Oh, mercy.
And our car commander was a brand new second lieutenant, just graduated from OCS, and he didn't know anything about prisoners of war or anything. He was beginning to get educated. We were going to do what we wanted to do, whether he said anything or not. And he told us we wouldn't be allowed to go in that car across with the waves. Well, 5 minutes later, you couldn't tell who belonged in which car.
Right.
We were going over there.
Oh God. A little homecoming?
A little homecoming.
Good, good. You got to Leavenworth. How long were you at Leavenworth?
Overnight.
Overnight.
We got in there when they took us out of Kansas City, said over there. We,
On a train.
yeah,
Okay.
we unloaded in Leavenworth. The next morning we were processed and given 60-day convalescent leave. And Max Coleman and I started hitchhiking south since we got our paperwork in and had 60 days leave.
Well, now, here's two guys that have spent certainly not an enjoyable time in POW camp, and you're at Leavenworth and you're going home. Was that the way everybody got home? Was hitchhike?
I don't know how they got home, but I know we said we were going to go home.
Yeah.
And we wasn't going to a bus station or anything else. We just started hitchhiking. And we were hitchhiking together.
Right.
And we got on to Highway 75.
Yeah.
We got down to Highway 50. Mac headed west, and I kept coming south on 75.
By yourself, hitchhiking, good weather, June or something, nice weather,
In the middle of the night.
and not a bit of concern or
No,
somebody. I bet you didn't have to wait very long for a ride, did you?
no, I didn't.
No. Do you remember who it was picked you up, or
No.
not by name, but
And I got into Independence, Kansas about 3 o'clock in the morning. Left Leavenworth about 4 that afternoon. So that was a pretty good time.
that's a good time. You're in Independence, Kansas, close to home. What's open that time of night in Independence, Kansas?
Nothing that I knew of. I went to the Booth Hotel and found a telephone and called my parents and asked if they'd come after me.
Did you have any money?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we got paid.
Okay. Was there anybody at the Booth Hotel?
I think there was a desk clerk.
Desk clerk or something. He probably seen so many Army guys coming through, it didn't mean a thing to him.
Well, we had the airbase right outside of town.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
At that time, a couple of more questions, George. At that time, did you have any rank or insignia or anything on your uniform by then, or
no,
no? Just a plain Army uniform.
plain Army uniform like a buck private,
Buck
regular
private.
inductee. And Max and I had some fun in Leavenworth, seeing the new draftees coming in, and we quizzed them about the place, and they would give us a big long line. And finally, they get around asking us where we were from. And then we tell them we just got back from overseas, and their jaws would drop. We got
You came home. Your parents drove up and got you from Wayside. You got home. What'd you do? Do you remember what you did?
had breakfast.
Had breakfast. Did you get out of your uniform into some old civilian clothes you'd left?
No.
Remember? No.
No.
Stayed in your uniform.
Didn't have any old clothes.
Well, that may be right. So you had breakfast. At what point did you decide? Oh, I'm going back to school, or I'm going to college, or I'm going to work, or?
I didn't decide that at that time. We had 60 days leave, convalescent leave, and Max Coleman came down to Independence. We were to report back into Miami Beach, Florida, before we were reported. And he came down there, and we got on the train and rode down to Miami Beach together.
In uniform.
Yeah, at that time we'd put our rank on.
Okay.
And Max outranked me. He was staff sergeant, I was buck sergeant.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got into Kansas City, and the MPs there was checking all the GIs, making sure they wasn't taking any liquor on board the train. I had a portable radio, battery-powered radio, and they said, "What you got there?" And I said, "I got a radio," and opened the front where the dial was, and okay. But I had a pint of liquor in the back where the batteries were. But anyway, and
Memorable trip to Miami, and you got discharged down there?
no,
No?
we were supposed to stay there for 30 days, and got in on a Friday evening, and we Monday morning they loaded us on an airplane and took us to San Antonio, Texas, and we stayed down there until we discharged. We got our discharge down there. Max got his discharge one Saturday, and I got mine the next.
Any particular reason they moved you from Miami to San Antonio?
Yeah, they were wanting the hotels back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's over with. Let's get them out of here.
Take them back from the army.
Well, George, it's certainly been enjoyable talking to you. We filled almost 2 hours, and appreciate you taking the time to fill us in and talk about it. I know sometimes it's probably hard to talk about, but we do appreciate what you did, and I told you this before, and I'll make it a little personal, but you are one of my heroes, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you, George.